right now, and then I'm going to start. So I'll press start in three, two, one.
All right. So I think we've got everything going. Mike Z, give me a thumbs up if you can hear me. Fantastic. Keith, thanks. Fantastic. All righty. Looks like people are joining. Welcome, everybody. My name is David Giesiga. I'm with the Elevate Technology User Group. Welcome to our June Community Hour. We've got a great conversation for you today. We're going to give it a couple of minutes as we let all the attendees in. Everybody's coming in. I'll redo this, but Keith and Mike are here, we're going to talk about all sorts of hanging gardens of Canada.
Hanging everywhere.
It's fantastic. Let's see here. We'll give it one more minute, and then we'll go. It is funny how the auto with the backdrop and the auto center, it looks like Mike's on ice sliding around.
Little hockey
we'll go ahead and kick it into gear here.
Yeah.
Welcome to the June, or I guess to another Elevate Technology Community Hour. I'm joined today by a very special guest, Keith Bradley, Vice President of IT and Security at Nature Fresh Farms, and my special co-host, Mike Vlanek, Director of Global Infrastructure. These gentlemen are both also very involved in user groups. Keith is on the Advisory Council for the Dell Technologies User Community, or DTUC, and Mike, as many of you may know, is also a member of the Elevate Technology Board of Directors. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being here. How are you?
Great.
Yeah, great. Thanks for having me.
Fantastic. Before we get started, I do want to encourage everybody, we would like this to be as interactive as possible. Please use the chat or the QA, pardon me, the QA function to ask us questions or to weigh in. We wouldn't be able to do this without the support of our sponsors, Dell Technology and Intel. So thank you very much for sponsoring us today. All right, we are here to talk all sorts of things. Greenhouse and AI.
Yeah,
Keith,
they don't merge sometimes, do they?
Well, it sounds like, the conversations we've had, you guys have done some fantastic stuff, and it was really neat to see you at Dell Technologies World. For those of you listening in who attended Dell Technologies World, Keith had a really cool example of the greenhouse and what they're doing. For us to get started, I think it would help to just set some context, Keith. So could you tell us a little bit about Nature Fresh Farm, and then, the company, how it's been growing, what your involvement's been, and then give us a sense of what your IT environment looks like, including the team that you manage, please.
Yeah.
Was that pun intended, David? How the company's been growing?
I know. I've heard that a couple times. So Nature Fresh Farms, we were founded in the year 2000. We grow bell peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers, and as of last year, we just started to grow strawberries. So we basically grown everything. And when you think of Nature Fresh, you have to think of, I almost like to compare us to a hospital in a way. We actually have this plant. We control every aspect of that plant's life, from how much water it drinks, how much sun it gets, to everything it does for the whole life cycle. So the moment it's born to the moment we take it out and we start fresh again, we control everything of that. So, we want to optimize its growth. We want to make sure it's getting everything it needs. And when we started doing this, we really started looking at how do you scale this? And it's weird to think of a greenhouse of trying to have the same uptime as a hospital. It really is something different. When I've talked about it before, that we need to be up 24/7 to make sure those plants grow, because if they don't get the right nutrients at the right time, bad things happen. So we have a very large environment here at Nature Fresh. Well, I like to say large for a small, medium business that we are. We're VxRail based for all of our compute, PowerScale for all of our unstructured data. And at the same token, we're a big Dell switches. We like them. We like the simplicity of support. And we go from there. And then we're right down to the Latitude 9450s and stuff like that when you get to the workstations. As for my team, we're a fairly small team, so that's why we like to keep things simple. We're on the traditional IT side. I oversee 5 people there on that side. We have 3 people in the DevOps / AI, and then 2 people in the ERP.
And to do this, how many acres of growing are you doing? What are your locations? And give us a sense of like how spread out or how consolidated your environment is.
Yeah. So we're fairly spread out. We are spread out. We cover 250 acres of land. That's divided into what we call ranges. Anywhere from a range can be anywhere from 32 acres to 15 acres, depending on where it's at. In Delta, Ohio, we have 90 acres, probably over 150 acres of land spread out. And then in Canada, we have 160 acres, probably spread out over 250 acres. So when I'm talking what we grow in 200 acres of greenhouse, that's 258 acres covered by glass and totally inside of a greenhouse. So when you see a picture of our greenhouses and you see things, you should never see a wet plant because we don't want the water to come in. We want to control every aspect of it.
Very cool. Very cool. I imagine your water needs must be huge in addition to power and everything, but that's not quite what we're here to talk about.
Yeah. Well, actually, water and AI are a big combination that we do. We do a lot of stuff with that because we do take up a lot of water, but we recycle a lot of our water too. But that is
all right. Well, you said the magic word AI,
Yep.
so let's dive into what you guys are doing from an AI perspective, because I think I got a little taste of that at DTW, but would certainly love to hear more about that.
Yep. So what we do is when we first started the journey of, I can say, transforming our technology, and you know, we talked about earlier, AI has kind of become that new buzzword. Transformation was a word. Now AI is a word. When we started to transform our organization, we started to build it on a structure to be able to grow and expand. And that's no pun intended again there, Mike, but we wanted to grow and not grow through the woes of downtime and stuff like that. So when we first started, I wanted to turn a grower's life, a grower that's in charge of growing the bell peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers, from instead of being reactive to the environment, because we do control the environment, but the outside does dictate how we do things. If it's cold in Canadian weather, they got to heat it. If it's hot like today, you got to make sure you open the vents and try to cool it off. So everything we did was very reactive. So what we started to do is started to build an AI engine and an AI model that started to predict. So the grower wants the greenhouse to be at this temperature at this time. Okay, how do I make it get to that? Do we burn wood chips? Do we use natural gas? Is it warm outside already, and do I need to just open the vents and let the heat in? So that way a person isn't looking at that saying, how do I do this anymore? So that was one of the first things that we started to do. And by doing that, it allowed the growers to be freed up and walk into the greenhouse and see what's going on, instead of sitting there on the computer going, oh, I got to make sure I'm heating this up at the right time. And what's cheaper, natural gas, electricity? What do I do?
So a lot of folks are, you know, they hear the AI buzzword, they hear all the hype that's around and buzz that's around it, but they don't understand kind of how the rubber meets the road. So talk about a little bit about your environment and how you've implemented that, and sort of those elements of AI that you've implemented, and specifically what the underpinnings of that are.
Yep. So a lot of the things that we do, it always starts, and you're going to hear it every time, that data is king. That was one of the biggest, I think, advantages that we started with, is our growers have always wanted the data. They've always made sure it's accurate. They want to know. So if you go back in our system for 10 years, that data is very clean, very correct, and what we want to see. So now when you start feeding it into an AI algorithm, you start using PyTorch to kind of start to build a model and start to get it going, you can start to have something to help analyze it, how to put it together to make something work. You know, and my team really sat down and did it. And when we had all the information, it makes it easier. Then you start kind of connecting to the VxRails. We started using OpenVINO to making the inferences, and then making those, I call them small language models, to become large language models. It made it really different. But a lot of the stuff that we started with was very simple things. We want to get we want to irrigate 5 times a day, but we only want to irrigate when it's sunny. So pulling in the outside weather and letting the AI decide when can you irrigate. And that's where we started. There's a lot of those simple analogies on what to do, and it kept growing and expanding on how to do that.
So Keith, you said you got 10 years of data and it was clean data to start with. What were you storing that data on?
It was all in the PowerScale. Usually a lot of it was in a database format, so it was already pretty well ready to go. A lot of imagery. We did have images for a very long time from other projects, so we had a large amount of data that we just had to basically start teaching the models what's good, what's bad. You know, like what do you want? What do you want to see? The trickiest part when the models get complicated for us is how do you predict what you want to see happen in 3 weeks from now? Because what changes you make today to the greenhouse, you won't see that result for 3 to 4 weeks, because that's when that pepper, tomato, or cucumber actually gets picked. So it makes it really, really complicated to kind of predict that as a human being. But that's where that AI, that underlying knowledge of everything, comes into factor.
We've got some great activity in the question and answer, and I think John Fisher asked a really good question. That it sounds like you're using a LAM or a large action model, and he said, "Are you using REST GPT or Diffie as a way to integrate your LLM into your actions?"
We've actually used both over time. The Giphy is the one that we kind of really went to. That's what we've kind of did. But we're one of those companies, I like to say, we'll try anything once, and we will literally do out there and we'll try it once. I know
fail fast.
Yep. Move on fast, as fast as you can. I know it was just interesting. The teams all over it. Intel just released a whole bunch of new AI languages for their newest chipsets to work off to help the OpenVINO. We're all over that now. I know they were working on that constantly the other day, so it was something that they're working on.
Yeah, and then Brent had asked, how much automation do you allow the AI to control or interact with? So, like, it sounds like kind of guardrails. What are you doing there?
So what we do is that was part of our transformation. What we did is, so before, the grower would get an alarm saying something's not right in the greenhouse, like it got too warm, and then he would have to log in and make the changes. Now what we slowly changed now is it was a 3-year model that kind of took since 2021, where the grower would get an email now that would say, here are the suggestions I would do. Now it starts to get to the point now where it says, this is the change I've made, this is why I made them. And the grower has the option to go back in to change it, but that way he doesn't have to be the one to do it. It can react instantaneously. You know, today's a perfect example. We got high heat in where I'm at today, high heat. We're expecting thunderstorms at some point in time, but when do you make the change? Our radar system's actually actively watching that to say, hey, that's when we need to do it. When do you need to close these vents? When do you need to secure the greenhouse from the weather?
Very interesting.
Walk us through a little bit how you set this up. Do you have VxRails at every greenhouse? Are you running the AI models? How did you train the models? How are you running the models? Are you bringing your data to the models, or what's going on?
So, you know, we always have our core. We have our main core that runs the largest models. It's a 7-node cluster. It started as a 3-node cluster, and then it became 5, then it became 7. We also have other 3-node clusters spread out, but we have a couple of XR4000s out there that does the local compute. Because the concept being is that we don't need to look at every large language model at the same time. We don't want to always overanalyze things, and we want to be protected because downtime does happen. Somebody comes out and cuts the internet. So you want each section of our greenhouse to be able to function on its own. So we have 12 phases, I call it, like that, of different greenhouses, structured greenhouses. Each one can act independently on its own. It might not have as much knowledge, but it can independently act for a good 24 or 36 hours on its own without having to pull back to the hub to say, hey, how do I look at this better?
Okay. And you're using the XR4000s because you wanted to do this before the VD4000 really came out, right?
Yep. Yeah, we adopted that right away. I think we were one of the first 12 or 13 people to have one in North America. We got it right when they came out because we wanted that stability out at the edge and the robustness and that hardening system that we can do it. But definitely our next generation will be actually on the VxRail again, because that's where we really have focused everything. My team's very familiar with it, they know it, they love it, and they're not going to stop wanting to use it.
When I hear XR, I'm definitely thinking along the lines of what Dell's looking to offer around native edge. Are you guys looking at native edge as an opportunity in the future?
Yep. Native edge is one of the biggest things I think that's going to change how we do things. We've really learned how to do things great and control our greenhouse. The next thing we need to learn to do great is actually in the warehouse side of things. So now in the warehouse, the problem is it's a new environment. There's many different warehouses. The warehouses we've taken over. So there's 10 different types of technologies in there. And it's not just us wanting to rip and replace. So now with the native edge, we're actually doing a demo with it to show how do we allow all these different vendors to come in, pull this data into a single pane of glass, and start to run that AI on that to help do it. One of the stories we're looking at is even energy savings, a camera to watch. So a strawberry's journey, I'll take you through a strawberry's journey where we're looking at. A strawberry needs to go to 34 degrees Celsius or 34 degrees Fahrenheit. I always flip between the eyes and Canadian here now. So I got to think about it sometimes. We wanted to get to 34 degrees Fahrenheit almost within an hour of being picked, because that leads to the best shelf life. So you can envision trying to keep a cooler of 300,000 clamshells of strawberries that are coming in at 90 degrees Fahrenheit down to 34 as fast as you can. The cooling power it takes. But now what we're looking at is we need to put a camera up to see and say, hey, there's nothing in there. Then look into our ERP system to say, hey, they're not picking or doing anything until Monday. Let's raise that temperature up, save a lot of energy, and do that. And then as it sees it, one of the analogies we want to see is it's going to grow up. The temperature grows up as you keep putting more in. I need to cool faster. So that's one of the things that this native edge is, I'm really hoping is going to solve for us. And that's one of the biggest things that we're looking forward to.
Interesting. Well, and I think, going back to the AI topic, one of the things that we talked about the other day when you and I were talking was one of the solutions that you're looking at for trucking and making that more efficient. Can you talk to a little bit about that as well?
Yep. So the other thing we're getting to now, that next generative AI that, you kind of, I got to teach myself sometimes, remind myself of that too, that we're doing the generative AI is a different thing and a new beast for us. We're not even as good as that. But we're leaning on Dell. So you can envision we're 450, almost 500 acres of land, multiple facilities, multiple different loading bays all over the place with multiple entrances. How do we help a truck driver get to us? So we're looking at using a generative AI, the Dell solution, to make a web page or a person to talk to basically say, hey, I'm bringing in load SI 1234. It says, hey, I see you're 4 hours away. We're not going to be able to ready. It'll look into our ERP system, look into our docking system that knows where the docks are. It says, we're not going to be ready for another 8 hours for you to get here. So either slow down, park somewhere, because we don't have enough parking here for everything. Or at the same token saying, hey, we're ready for you now. Let's get coming here now. And this is where you need to go get your loading bay. Or the other thing that happens all the time, because it's not uncommon for me to show up on a Sunday, I'll be here on a Sunday and a truck will be sitting there going with a piece of paper like, how do I get here? And I'm like, oh, you're in the whole wrong different section. That way he can chat with somebody to say, and it knows through the GPS on his phone that says, you're in the wrong place. Here's the map of how to get to the right place.
Wow. I think that's fascinating, and it makes me think about like Digital Human that Dell had demoed even as early as 2 DT Worlds ago, and I think that's one of those opportunities where they could talk to a digital human, and an LLM or any of the data that's driving that digital human can answer about where they need to be, what bay they need to be in, when they need to be there. I think that's a fascinating thing that's coming down the pike for you all.
Yeah, and even the simple stuff, even for our website now, We're actually looking at even expanding it to our website, because people come to our website and say, where can I get your peppers at? I live in Dallas, Texas. And they'll say, here's
Austin,
where,
Massachusetts.
there you go.
There's a
Yeah.
Costco in Dedham.
Yeah, there you go. And where do you get them? How do you get that stuff? Where is it at? And before, it's funny because before we got into it, and we're replacing it right now with an AI, we're not really looking at it, we're actively doing it right now. We used to go to a trade show, and we'd have a long stack of papers, and we'd flip through by states. Okay, yeah, there you go. That's where you can get them from, because they didn't know another way of how do you kind of do this. You don't want to have 5 laptops out there. There's no way you can look through your phone for something, but you make this AI chat bot that basically tell you this. It makes life so much easier. But that's just another example of how AI can make life so much easier on people.
Wow. We've got some more questions in the Q&A. Jay had asked, are you guys sharing any of your models or related insights with groups like universities? Like, is that something that y'all are engaged in, or is that more proprietary and kept internal?
So we actually do partner up. Our owner has actually built a whole research and development center in Leamington, Ontario here, and we actively work with the University of Guelph, who has a huge agricultural thing and all that, and we have partnered up with a lot of them to be a part of this research and development facility, where they're growing everything from blackberries to leafy greens and all that kind of stuff. And some of the stuff comes from them, and as they're basically a sister company, we do share a lot of insights among each other of how to do that. So are we sharing it? Yes, but it is a lot of proprietary knowledge on what we do.
So
that's awesome. And I think, oh, go ahead, Dave.
Well, to piggyback on that, you're talking proprietary knowledge in these large language models, the LAMs. You're head of security too. How are you navigating all of that?
That's a never-ending journey. It just keeps going. We're constantly looking at better ways to protect it. How do we stop people from taking it? How do we even stop people, and truthfully, from even corrupting the model? Like, not even intentionally, but how do you stop somebody that just isn't as experienced and entering the wrong data into it and mucking things up? But from a security standpoint, because we're all on-prem, it does make it a lot easier to control the data. You're not going out to the cloud. You don't have to go outside of your organization. We have very strong control of what we're seeing. And at the end of the day, I'm a bit of a hog, I guess. I keep a lot of the information to myself, because I'll let you know what you need to know, and that's it. So
we had a question from Brent, who asked how you're managing all the IoT devices in your environment. Is that something that you're doing centrally, or talk about that a little bit?
Yep. So basically what we do is we'll have a lot of IoT devices out there. We have anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 sensors for every, say, 20 acres of a greenhouse. Like, we have sensors that record everything. The biggest thing I learned, and we did that's different, is that because IoT sensor data is so time sensitive, we've actually not only we have physically separated that network. So what we actually have a growing network that's actually physically separate. It's not VLAN off, it's totally separate, and only at the core data spots does it come together. All that all the data basically comes to the core or the local node first, which is then uploaded. But we get so we did a study with one of our vendors a couple years back, and to give you the idea of the volume of data, and a lot of it is transactional, and that's how much is traversing the network, is we have about 1.6 million plants in our greenhouse at any point in time. And each one of those plants creates about 11 megs of data a week.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, from the time it's grown to the time it leaves. So a lot of it is transactional. We do a lot of filtering. It's one of those things too that we've been doing for 10 years. So IoT's felt like it's been around a shorter time, but we've been doing this for almost 20 now. So we're just used to collecting that data and how to streamline it. How do you store it? How do you condense it? What do you keep is the thing. But a lot of we have a large number of SQL databases, the large language models. We have our own on the PowerScale. one of the biggest things that happened with PowerScale that we loved is it actually has a native Amazon S3 bucket that you can create, which a lot of vendors all say, oh, hey, we'll upload it to the cloud. I'm like, no, here's where you point it to, and we'll store it all. And so we get total control of it.
Very cool. Well, and I would imagine that it's a constant decision point and maybe even a struggle on, like you said, what do you keep? Like how long is this data viable and actionable versus, like you said, when you make a change, 3 days later is when you're going to see anything. So
yeah,
that's the spinning plates that you have to deal with, right?
Yeah, but that's the joy of getting once you get the data correct and everything there, AI allows that knowledge of the different growers. So we have 3 senior growers, and they are the growers that I like to call them the old Yodas that are out there that know everything. They're the Obi-Wans of the growing industry, but they still only know what they know. And now once they teach an AI, it knows it for every range. And so now a grower might get a prompt saying, hey, I'm making this change based on this. And he's like, oh, I didn't do it that way because another grower had done it that way and it got better results. And, it allows them to look back and see things. And that's the joy of AI, is it shares that knowledge. It isn't proprietary to one range for us.
So
that's fascinating.
Meaning that, if it's in Ontario or if it's in Ohio, it can, like, it adjusts for location, time differences, sun differences, all sorts of things.
Yep. Yeah, we're even getting to the part where I'd like to say that, like, because of the way the storm fronts come, they hit Delta, Ohio first, and then they hit Leamington. So we get real-time data enough that when the storm front comes through Delta, Ohio, we're starting to be able to say, this is how the plants reacted. Did they wilt? Did they yield? Like, what did they do differently? Bang, and when it hits Canada, we're already ready. We're going to do something a little different to stop that wilting, to stop that from doing it. And that's how quickly we want to be able to analyze it in that hour-and-a-half gap.
Wow. So, Keith, this is all fascinating. I've got so many questions. Maybe could you back up a little bit, or could you talk to us about, AI, ML, what you're doing versus like Gen AI and the history that you guys have been working with this? And then how did you train up these models? How big is your NVIDIA, AI factory? What's going on?
Yeah. So right now we're so basically you say our model started very small. Like PyTorch was our go-to thing forever. It still is every day. We like to use that. We like to continue to kind of keep down that road. OpenVINO is what we use to reference things, but our models really started with a lot of pictures, as you can think, and just even going through and checking it off, is this good or bad? One of the best examples I could talk to about training an AI, I guess, that we did, and this is more from the practical sense, and this is looking at, is we also use AI to help track our bugs. It's all different things, like all of our pests.
Okay.
But when you're trying to find that spider that you have in the house, you never can find them. But you'll see the spider webs. You'll see the stuff like that that's out there. So we started trying to use AI to help us find and know what pests are inside of our greenhouse. We could never create a camera to find the bugs. So what we took back the language model and say, okay, if a plant is infested with this type of bug, what does it do? And we taught the AI, we taught the language model of, it wilts, it takes less nutrients. Like this is an infestation of aphids, because we could never find the bug. So we now taught the AI to look at how the plant reacts. So that's what we did, is we took that model, we did PyTorch, we did all kinds of different things in there. And I know my geeked out team would be like, Keith, you're not going into enough details of it, but that's what we do. And then we make the inferences to know how to do it. But that's how you do it. Is we just started off with something and we failed the first time trying to look for the bugs. And then we tried to find, how do you do that more and more?
Different type of bug hunting. I love it. I love it.
Well, the biggest thing I think that's going to change, and this is it's just a cool factor of what we're doing, is right now we employ about 10 million bumblebees to pollinate all of our things.
They have their own badges and everything. They badge into the greenhouse and
Well, I wish they did, because I'd like to know how much work they are doing. But I want to get rid of those lazy bees.
right.
But we're looking at, like, when do you pollinate a plant to make the best pepper? And how do you look at the growth of the plant? So, that's like we talk about the models, different models we have. We have a model for, this is pepper and coloring. This is a model for the leaves of how they're looking. Like, is this healthy? Is it not? And then even the data models of, this is the right amount of, we call it EC, that the plant should absorb in the water and come out of it. Because we know how much water goes in, the nutrient factor going in, and then the nutrient factor coming out. Like, is it absorbing it? What's wrong with it? Why is it not absorbing it? Even to the weight of the tomato vines. Like, we'll know how much weight they have. And that's
Wow.
another model all there. Like, okay, when does the weight stop growing? That's not right here now. What's going on?
I'm looking at this picture behind you and I'm thinking about, like, are you guys down to the level of detail where you can understand how many tomatoes are on each vine or each plant? Are you that deep into it?
Yep. One of the things we had started off years ago, and it's kind of funny, all these things kind of helped us grow in our journey, and it helped us get the data that we did, is at the end of the day, we wanted to be able to say to you as a consumer out there, this is where in the greenhouse this pepper came from. So we can actually tell you by a box of peppers, we can tell you that this pepper in this box came from this row inside the greenhouse, and this is who picked it and when. Like, it's going to be a couple rows, like, we're not going to have an exact row, but that's how far back our traceability is. Everything we measure is down to per meter squared. How much does it cost us to grow per meter squared, and how much grow plants can we get out of per meter square?
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
And we constantly look at that data and analyze it. And that's, like I said, where the even as simple as what you did, Mike, of dropping things into Copilot, we're doing that all the time now to analyze things. Just learn to drop it in there to say, hey, let's do this. Let's talk about it. Let's start to figure out what it can tell us that I'm not seeing.
Yeah.
So Keith, with all this data, I'm imagining there's no way you can keep it all.
Yeah.
So can you share some best practices without getting into proprietary? Like, what have you learned along the way of what do you keep? How do you manage this so that it's useful? Like, did you have any stories of, oh, shoot, we shouldn't have deleted that? What could you share with members? you know?
We've all had that story, I think.
Yeah. Yep. So everything that we store, again, it's on our PowerScale. Like, that's all of our unstructured data. We really learned and let it grow. We continue to grow in the sense of, we don't get rid of as much as you think. We've learned to take the transactional data and just only write what we need to and kind of erase what's there. Like, so anything that doesn't change, we just automatically erase, and then we only keep the change points. That's the simple stuff. The pictures and stuff like that, what we've learned to do is we basically have learned to only take the pictures and keep the pictures of the changes. Yeah, and actually somebody just mentioned on there, vector databases is going to become one of your new best friends out there. We've been using those for about 6 months now to a year, and it has really helped us retain more data. But have I lost data that we had? Oh yeah, I've lost data where I've been like, we deleted that model and we never thought we'd use it. We deleted that data because we just ran out of it. In general, we hold at any point in time, we're looking at a little over 500 terabytes of data that we hold on-prem for us. We're looking at offloading some of that with the PowerScale now that we can dump it right up to the Azure cloud, of starting to dump some of the older data. The always fear of with the cloud is the cost. And that's, we've always wanted to control our costs. That's why we've stayed on-prem so much. And the big thing you got to remember too, a lot of our facilities are in the middle of nowhere. I know a lot of people out there. When we started our journey, we were literally, I think we only had a 50 meg connection, and that was the best we could get. coming to our facility. So when
Wow.
people are saying, Keith, why aren't you going to the cloud? I'm like, well, I'd love to talk about it, but until we get fiber optics out here, it's not going to make a difference. And we now do have fiber optics out in this whole area. One of the big things we have is fiber optics now. And we were one of the big pushers. We actually paid a lot of money to get that to come out because we needed it. We needed to be able to communicate with our other greenhouses because even though we didn't have fiber, we were still talking to our other greenhouses. Even our distribution center, we have a distribution center in Laredo, Texas. We need to know in real time what they're picking up and what they're getting ready to ship. So we have to know where is that tracking to and understand and store all that and make sure it's ready to move.
It's interesting, and I think one of the things that I've noticed as you're talking is, you mentioned Azure, you mentioned AWS, so it sounds like you've got a lot of different opportunities for putting things in the cloud in different places. Talk to me a little bit about some of the Dell solutions and how it makes that a simple transition to push it to the cloud if you don't want to retain it there locally.
Yeah, well, even everything we do now, like the PowerScale, it has a built-in ability to make a cloud tier. So it is so easy, just fire it up, connect it to Azure. It has an Azure, it has an AWS. I think it has even Google now. We haven't did it yet, but they're all out there. So you can just basically make a third or fourth tier of your storage. We divide our tier up into solid state, hybrid, and spinning, but now we can make that cloud tier. And do we use it? Yeah, it's great to dump. I'm a hoarder in general, like, old user data I don't like to get rid of, especially because it's easy to upload and hope you never have to get it. But if you do want to get it, you get it. So we keep constantly just dumping up to these buckets and going up there. Same things for our backup and retention. We don't, because we're all on-prem, where does your backups to make sure that you're protected? I've always been a firm believer, and I've said this many times, I like to keep things in the cloud. But given how big geographically we are, that if we lost everything and it was all destroyed, I'm just driving up north somewhere else to go away from where we are because it's that bad. If everything's lost that much. But we do back up our critical data to the cloud. A lot of our accounting and financial and our language models that are proprietary that we're going to want to keep no matter where we go. We want that backup encrypted and in the cloud so that we can always restore it in the event that something bad does happen.
So, Keith,
and we are still, like, and just to go into our AI journey too, we are still all Intel based for our AIs using OpenVINO and stuff like that. We have 2 VxRail nodes that are NVIDIA ready. They have the cards on there. We have 4 A30 cards ready to start rocking. There's always a point now where you got to go, when do you start to use them? We're just starting to hit that point, but we're 4 or 5 years into our journey. So to the people that are just starting to get out to it, don't be scared to start with what you have.
Get ready when you fire up those A30s, you're going to dim the lights.
You know what? It's funny you think that, but when if you turn on the lights to 150 acres of greenhouse all at once, it dims lights in the whole state. We have more power coming in some days. I look at what I use up for power and it doesn't even register. But yeah, we're and the biggest thing we're concerned about is actually cooling. Is how do I now cool this server room that really wasn't ready for it, and is it gonna do it or not? How are we gonna do it? So we're kind of really concerned, and I'm kind of waiting to see how this is all gonna turn out. It's gonna be a whole new journey. It's been a while since we did something really, really new like this, so I'm kind of curious to see and even change our mindset of how to use the NVIDIA GPU for that.
One of the things you mentioned was the different vegetables and fruit you're growing. Have you all used, and then the fact that you've added other products, have you used technology to pick sort of that next thing you're going to grow, or even the thing you're growing now that you don't want to grow anymore?
Growing it in a greenhouse is just slightly different. So it's more of a matter of what you can grow. We've tried crazy things like watermelons in a greenhouse, and it just didn't do it. But AI directly to tell us what we're going to do, we're starting to talk about it as we have a Nature Fresh Farms that grows a Nature Fresh sales that sells a product, the sales team is starting to look at, okay, how do we use our AI to look at what we need to sell and what's going to open up doors to let us sell more of our core products to open a door. We really got into the strawberry business because it really opened a lot of doors for us to be able to sell and do things like that. It was a new crop. It was a lot of fun. It's a lot exciting, a lot more data and a lot more learning to it because it's all brand new. But that's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Keith, you're a huge supporter of user groups. You're involved with DTUC, you're getting involved with Elevate. You mentioned just a little bit ago, for folks who are interested in starting Gen AI or this journey, you don't have to wait for the latest and greatest. Start with what you had. I think I caught you saying you guys have been doing this for 5 years now, and you haven't even turned on your NVIDIA GPUs. Are there lessons learned that you can share, or best practices, advice that you could give some folks who might be listening, or like, look, I'm hearing about this. I know I'm going to have to do this. What do I do?
Yeah. So one of the biggest news that I can say to you do is there is a whole section in your vSphere and VxRails that can actually help you optimize your AI Intel GPU use, Intel AI use case for what you're doing. I didn't know about that till probably about a year ago. And when I turned that on, when they told me about it, but I think it just came out in the latest version of vSphere here now, it really changed our compute. Like some of our models that were taking 3 hours to do actually dropped to almost an hour. So it really did change. So there is constant evolution happening. But as for adopting it, yes, I think you don't need to have, and I know Dell talks a lot about the AI factory, and I like to say that we're just the small version of an AI factory, but you don't need to buy this huge machine to start to learn how to do it. And even with the way that all the products are going now, that they're going to have basically AI capabilities right to the laptop, I wouldn't be surprised to see more and more people using AI models right on their laptop as a general thing. And I can see us adopting that right now. We're using it on more precision-based ones at the desktop, but now I think it's just going to explode everywhere. So don't be scared to get your hands dirty. Understand that you might not do it in 30 seconds, but it'll still do AI for you, is the biggest thing that I can tell for everything.
And then if you've got VxRail, what's the thing you got to turn on to save 3 hours or 2 hours?
Oh, it's within the settings. I couldn't tell you now because I only had that's the joy of it. You touch it once and you don't do it again, but I'll make sure to send it over so you guys got a copy of it. I did a session with actually somebody from VMware and he talked about it in depth, and I'm like, this is amazing. I loved it, and I'll send it over. I'll make sure to share it with the community there now on what to do, because he actually laid it right out. Here's how you adjust it depending on what generation core, right within there, and it was just amazing change for us.
All right, that's great. Mike, I think there's one more question in the Q&A. Do you want to take that?
Yeah, there was a question about, are you using deduplication in your isolons?
Yep. So we're actually not using deduplication. We kind of try to take over it as much as we can. We found that it slowed things down too much to deduplicate that much things. It was just too hard on the system. We might use it now. I think it's still active in a couple of older user folders, stuff like that, as we segregated things out. But when you dedupe it, it just slowed the AI down, and we didn't want to let it pull fast enough for us.
Right. So that sounds like a good lesson learned, best practice as well.
Well, yeah. I think we're going to learn a lot about these technologies that have existed a long time as we couple them with AI. And there's definitely nuance there of understanding, the new demands on the system and what AI brings. I think that there's going to be a lot of great lessons learned that, we can share amongst our members as we run across these nuances.
Yeah, it's high learning time, fire hose effect, but we don't want to see those plants get wet. So this is great share of information. We're approaching quarter till the hour, and we like to give time back for folks. Everybody who's here, if you've got final questions for Keith or for Mike, please shoot those into the chat or the Q&A. And Keith, I'll hand it to you. Any final words that you'd like to share as we're waiting for any last questions?
Yeah. The biggest thing in any journey I like to say in any technology space that I really adopted is I like to say I'm a very lazy person. So I always build things and how do I make the 5-year cycle easier? And that's where we kind of got into this whole area of how do you make things be able to be expandable. And the Dell products, the VxRail, the PowerScale, even the PowerFlex, you want to adopt those technologies so that you can grow and expand with your company. When you kind of get into something that's hard to upgrade and hard to change, it makes it really much harder. And at the same time, I'm part of the Elevate group. It is a great resource. There's a bunch of great people out there to talk to. And one of the biggest things I took away from Dell World this year was don't be scared to ask a question out there, because I guarantee you there's somebody else in the group that's already ran into it. They will help you through it. That's the great thing about a community. And that's a great thing about a user group is we're here to help, we're here to share, and we're here to make sure that everybody succeeds.
Yeah, it's a great plug for the user group. And I think, I totally agree. There's somebody out there that has spilled the blood in the mud previously and has run into that and can certainly provide a way forward and the way they got past it. So I think a great benefit.
Oh, let's see here. I was just about to wrap and I saw something pop up in the
Yeah, I just see it too. Yeah.
All right. So Jay writes, what's the biggest surprise you can share from where you started on the journey to integrating so many different technologies you've mentioned today to be useful for the business?
I guess one of the biggest technologies, I guess you can say, that really changed things for us was actually being able to weigh an IoT sensor to weigh the tomatoes in real time. And this is more not even a technology thing, but we didn't realize that a plant needs to sleep, and there's a science to that. But we started to share, and so we were.
Say, I'm sorry to interrupt, but did you just say a plant needs to sleep?
Yeah. So we couldn't figure out why, with all of our models, why a plant wasn't doing better with more light. And it was mucking everything up, and we just couldn't get anything else. And then we started realizing that the plant stopped absorbing the water in the right way at a certain time. So it actually allowed us to realize that the plant just needed to go to bed. It needed to sleep, so we turned the lights off. But I always say the biggest thing I can say with technology is sometimes the easiest thing to do is to keep it simple. Use a simple technology to get to the point that you need to get. And always be ready for a new vision of something else. And Google and ChatGPT and all that, they're great friends to say, hey, how do I find this? Because somebody else, like you said, the Elevate community doesn't have a lot of growers out there, but that's what they're there for, to help with the technology. And we had to find a way to store that sensor data in a different way. And that ended up making that new language model.
Well, I tell you, for anyone keeping score at home, I think employing bees and putting plants to sleep was the two things I did not think we would talk about today, but certainly fascinating elements of what Nature Fresh Farms is doing. Yeah. And I do want to give a shout out to Jay and his emoji uses on point, man. Yeah. He's right there in it.
And Linka there, she's all there.
That's great. So before we wrap real quick, Keith, we were talking earlier, you're going to be presenting at VME Las Vegas. Is that right?
Yep. I'm actually doing a session on vSphere and how to use it with just Intel-based CPUs for AI workloads.
That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, me and Earl will be doing a session on that. So.
All right. Well, if anybody here is listening and you're going to Las Vegas for VME, look up Keith's session, support him. That sounds like a fantastic, a really cool topic and to really dig into.
Yeah.
Mike.
We're going to give away the secret sauce too of how to make that AI work on Intel chipsets. It is where it's good. We are actually having slides for it.
Well, that's
Secret
awesome.
tomato sauce, probably.
Well, that's so, Intel, did I mention Intel is sponsoring the community hour today?
There you go.
There you go.
We've come full circle.
Yep.
So full circle. Keith, this is fascinating. Really cool stuff. Really, what a great conversation. So fantastic. Can't wait to hear more. I'm looking forward to your session in Las Vegas. Mike, thanks for being the co-host. It's great to see you. And everybody attending, if you've got questions and they weren't answered, shoot them to membersservices@elevateusergroup.com, and we'll connect you with Keith or Mike or anybody who's the expert that we can figure out to get you the answer. If you're going to Las Vegas for VME Las Vegas at the end of August, please look up Keith's session. That's, show support and ask questions, say hi. Keith, keep rocking with the Dell Tech user community. It's a great partnership that we're expanding with Elevate Technology User Group. So the support of user communities is fantastic. And thank you for being involved.
Yep. Thank you for having me.
Yep.
Oh, it's a pleasure. All right. Well, I will bid everybody a fantastic July. We will be back July 25th for another community hour. Until then, stay cool and, cool down those greenhouses, open the vents, close the doors. It's fascinating. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank
Be
you.
well. Take
Thanks.
care.